No. Thank you today, and we have a very special guest. That I call him the walking encyclopedia of LA. You know the ins and outs of all LA County. Evan, LA in a minute. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I caught him outside, and he just got done saying that he went to Saugus Cafe to film some content.
Okay,
been there before.
right now?
Right? That's right.
Cool.
Had to make the trip worthwhile. Absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
100 years, it's the oldest.
I mean, hold on. To be clear, it's very worthwhile just to be on the podcast. But I don't like to waste any time, though. Right. You know what I mean? To drive, I think it was like 38 miles for me to get here. So I was like, look, if I'm going to, plus I need to cover out here, right? Like every area of the city needs to be covered. And I've criminally undercovered this area. So I'm like, I got to get at least 2 episodes in while I'm out here. So
how long have you had your page?
Since January.
Wow, that's awesome. And your following is
90,000. You're almost at 90K right now.
Yeah. Get in there.
Are you doing TikTok as well, obviously?
Yes. Yeah.
TikTok
was where I started, actually.
What gave you the idea?
Honestly, my son, he didn't give me the idea, but he's like, any of you guys have kids?
He's not taking all the credit. He's not getting all the credit.
He does not have 10%.
No, but so he was 8 years old last year. This is like last holiday season, right? And he's totally like screen time addict. You guys look young. I don't know if any of you guys have kids, but like kids are nuts about, I mean, we're nuts about screens too, but kids are like super nuts and it's a fight. So I finally, one day I was like, dude, I'm going to stop fighting him because you can't just take away the screen all the time. And I'm like, listen, if you learn something today from whatever you watch on the screen, then I'll let you have screen time tomorrow. And I don't care if it's like Saturn has rings or the Dodgers are in the National League. Just like learn something and I'll be like, that's fine. I feel better about myself. At that same time, my wife's cousins, they're younger. So every like holiday season, whenever with them, I'm always asking them, what are the kids into? You know, blah, blah, blah. And they're telling me TikTok. And I'd been resisting TikTok forever. And they're like, no, you'd love it. We get our news on TikTok. I'm like, that sounds terrible. Like Facebook news, like kind of ruin the world. Like people get their news on Facebook. And they're like, no, it's New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times. So I was looking at it and I'm still a newspaper guy, believe it or not, right? Like I actually get the newspaper. I've been trying to get my son to read the newspaper. Come on. Like even people my age don't read the newspaper. So he was like, heck no. I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start this TikTok where I'm just going to read not read the articles, but take 3 stories that happened in LA yesterday and talk about those and call it LA in a minute. So on January 3rd, which was my grandma's birthday, I started the LA in a minute TikTok, and their algorithm's like pretty good. Within, I don't know, a couple weeks, I had a few hundred followers, and I was like, all right, that's interesting. And then one day, news can be boring. So one day, I was like, there's no real news to talk about. I want to talk about like the mayoral race or politics or some, stuff like that, some legislation. So I've been reading a book on fast food restaurants that started in Los Angeles by an author named George Geary. It was called Made in California. It's California. It's called Made in California. But I noticed all the fast food places started in LA. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to put together a list of the 10 oldest fast food chains that started in LA. And that one kind of had some traction. And before I knew it, I had 1,000 followers, and then it just kind of mushroomed from there. So that's sort of where it all started. It was inspired by my son, but then it just turned into something like completely different.
That's awesome.
All right.
Yeah, that's cool.
What's your background? Like what's your, are you still working a job? Like what's your?
Yeah, I have a full-time job. I'm not generating a ton of revenue on this yet. I mean, hopefully knock on wood, there is a day, but, so I work in online advertising, which isn't as sexy as it sounds, at least not my role. What I do, and I won't get too bogged down in this, but you guys know Yahoo. Mm-hmm. Nobody goes to Yahoo, of course. People still have Yahoo email addresses and stuff, but Yahoo doesn't have people that like go to Yahoo to search. But they have advertisers that pay them to like have people look at their search listings. So what Yahoo contracts us out for is to get the Yahoo search feed on various websites. So that's what I do, and that's my role. But my background is actually kind of as a journalist, but we're talking many years ago. I went to UCLA. I was sports editor for the Daily Bruin, which is their newspaper. That's awesome. And then I got a job with the LA Times out of school, sports. So, I mean, sports is, not exactly hardcore journalism, but you learn the ropes and it's like real journalism. Yeah. But I was young and, I was like 21, 22. LA Times was sending me out to Orange County on Friday nights and Saturday nights. And back then you couldn't file your reports from there. You'd have to go back to headquarters in downtown LA. So I was spending Friday and Saturday nights driving, and my friends would be out partying and having fun. It's like 12:30 a.m. when I'm just getting out of work. Yeah. And you know, LA, like things shut down at 2, which really means 1:30. So by the time I got to downtown anywhere, I'm like giving up on my Friday and Saturday nights. So I was like, F this, like I'm not going to do this. So I went into the private sector and then kind of left that behind. But I've always had an interest in journalism. Like I said, still a newspaper guy. So it's kind of like in my blood.
Well, how old are you?
44.
Okay, you look great for 44.
Thank you.
I'm not hating on you, but
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So what's a like typical day like for you? Like, are you doing this at night? Are you doing this, like on the weekends?
So my company's not my company. The company I work for is based in Dubai, right? Oh, so I work like.
Do you ever get to go?
I've been once. They want me to go more often. Yeah. I don't love traveling without my wife and kid.
Dubai like in a minute right there. You got to do Dubai in a minute.
Right, dude. Yeah. So look, when you're younger, it's fun to travel by yourself. When you're older, there's different kind of hassles and strife. You know what I mean? So like, if I could take them everywhere, it'd be great. But we also have 3 dogs, and it's like so. Anyway, so I've only been once to Dubai. But so what my day is like, so they're in a different time zone. We start at like 6:30. I work till like probably 1:30, 2 o'clock. And then the second I'm out, I'm trying to like film something. Or like today was perfect because I'm like, all right, Santa Clarita, I haven't covered anything out here except the old road, basically. And I've been wanting to do the oldest restaurant in LA basically since I started. Yeah. But it's usually like, shoot, if I go all the way out to Santa Clarita, that's going to like burn the entire day and then like come back. So I've been recently working on this bigger picture story about water wars in William Mulholland, and I keep hearing about this St. Francis Dam. Does that you guys know about that?
Yeah,
St.
a little
Francis
bit.
Dam?
But definitely educate us,
dude. The biggest disaster in Los Angeles history, second biggest disaster in California history, behind the San Francisco earthquake. What happened is William Mulholland, who's the most important person in Los Angeles history, because without him there is no Los Angeles. He brought water into LA with the aqueduct. Stole it from the Owens Valley, which is a different story, but he's still like a hero in theory for bringing the water in and enabling us to have so many people and blah, blah, blah. So when the Owens River Valley was running dry in the 1920s, we needed more water. He was looking for other sources, but in the meantime, he's going to have these reservoirs. The way you get reservoirs is to build a dam. Built a dam in the San Francisquito Canyon, which was the St. Francis Dam. He was getting older. He's getting up there in years. So perhaps he cut some corners. Perhaps he didn't. He was never formally educated. He was never formally trained, which is interesting because he was the head engineer for Los Angeles. And he did all that with aqueducts. So he was amazing. He was a genius. But on this dam, he was like, we're going to need more water. It needs to be taller. We're going to need more water. It needs to be taller. But he didn't expand the foundation or the base of it all. And people were like, yo, this is a lot of concrete. And, you know, like, it's going to get so heavy. How are we not? And basically it was like, look, we can't start over. Let's just keep building. Dam gets filled. This is how much water was in there. 12 billion gallons. It took 2 years to fill it. Like, imagine like a pool. You know what I mean? Like if you fill a pool, I'm doing like this. Nobody. You don't fill a pool. But if you're filling a pool, it takes like basically a whole day just to fill a pool.
Right.
This is 12 billion gallons. So it took 2 years to fill.
Wow.
Almost 2 years to the day. Cracks start happening, leaks start happening. The guy who was the dam keeper, the guy who was like in charge of watching the dam, calls downtown LA, Mulholland's office, like, yo, there's these leaks over here. And dams do leak because concrete like expands and contracts. But he's like, this doesn't look like a normal leak because it's like muddy and it just looks like the foundation is eroding. Mulholland drove out from downtown LA, inspected the leak himself with his own eyes. They spent 2 hours at the dam. He's like, looks great. Everything's fine.
We're good.
That night, 11:57 p.m., the dam literally just collapsed. 12 billion gallons come roaring down the canyon. And that's a lot of water. It was a 120-foot high wave, ended up wiping out like towns that don't even exist anymore. And it went 54 miles, that wave, all the way out to the Pacific Ocean and killed almost 500 people. Jeez. So, I mean, that's basically like Mulholland's fault. Yeah. So, like, on one hand, so my bigger story that I was working on is like Mulholland's life. Is he this hero, or is he like ignominiously, like, you know, should he be like not held in this regard? Mulholland Drive, Mulholland Highway. But I'm always like, dude, I never heard of the St. Francis Dam.
Yeah, I didn't either. This
is the biggest disaster in LA history. I've heard of the Sylmar earthquake, heard of the Northridge earthquake, you know, stuff like that, the riots. Why have I literally had never heard of it even once.
Hush money.
Yeah. So I was like, dude, if I'm up here, I got to check it out. And what's cool is that the ruins are still there. So like, to me, I always think that that's kind of neat. It makes for like good background and stuff like that. And just being up there, you're like, oh shit, like this was some.
Yeah,
major.
I heard it's really haunted over there. Like we always ask, like, what's haunted in Santa Clarita, and I heard that area is one of the most.
I'm not kidding. So I'm supposed to do a long form episode on Mulholland's life. That's gonna be like a 20-30 minute one, but I wanted to do this one smaller. So when I was driving up there, in my head, I imagined I could park and like walk up there and like go up to the ruins. But you park and it's like a canyon, so you got to go down in the canyon. But that shit happened like 100 years, 90 years ago. It's all overgrown and there's trees and it's beautiful. Like it's a beautiful, and especially now that it's fall, it's like the colors are great, blah, blah, blah. But like, you know how it is when you're walking in a dark canyon with trees and the weather like it is today too.
Perfect scary movie weather.
So yes, I was filming it like from the sides and on top and trying to get like a down angle. But I envisioned in my head I was gonna be like right next to the ruins and stuff like that. But I'm like, I'm gonna wait till I have a group till I go down really in there. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously me, but it felt like it could be
a little haunted.
If not haunted, something.
500 people. Yeah, there's some still there.
It's real. That's real.
That's cool. You're covering that though, because all your videos are usually the topic that you're discussing. You're always at the location, right? And then you and then you probably go home and do all the research.
Unless it's stuff like mosquitoes, what I did, because I can't like capture a mosquito, or I've been really wanting to do one of the mountain lions of Los Angeles, but I don't know where I'm going to find a mountain. But I try to do like on site as much as I can. Yeah. So that's the.
Yeah, no, the one we posted of the water aqueduct right off the 14, like that one. Everyone always sees that going in and out of town.
That's dope, because I used to try. That's where I grew up, basically. So I remember driving by that literally hundreds of times when I was a kid, and you're always like, "That's a water slide."
Yeah, everyone
the forbidden
thinks that.
water slide.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting to see the Saugus Cafe one, because that's the oldest one in LA County. Like, there's so many celebrities that have gone through there, right? Like,
what'd you learn about that?
Everyone from like Frank Sinatra. Yeah, let us.
Interesting. So first of all, their sign outside says established 1886. The plaque inside says established 1888, but it was really established in 1887 because there's newspaper articles, and like, I have like old access to all the newspaper archives. So you could tell when it was part of a train station at first, train depot, the Saugus train depot. And that was built in 1887. And that's when this guy, what was his name? Tallfree, James Herbert Tallfree, who ran a chain of these things. It was called the Tallfree's Saugus Eating House. And he was smart because the trains were first becoming a thing in the late 19th century. So when you have a train stop, you have to have somewhere to eat, right? Like, especially back then, the West, it's still the Wild West. There's not like cities developed. So you could be on the train for 20 hours and never see a restaurant. So he's like, oh, dude, I'm going to open restaurants at these train stops. So he had a eating house in Tehachapi, in Mojave, in Bakersfield. And this was his fourth one. So it's kind of like a chain, which I found interesting because I'm like,
that is cool.
Who thinks like chain restaurants in like the 1880s, but it makes sense. But it was part of the train depot, and then it got new owners in 1900. They changed the name to the Saugus Cafe, but it's been moved twice. So it moved across the street away from the train station. Then it was moved into a pool hall, which is the building that it's in now. So I was kind of like, it is a continually running restaurant, but it's not like the original location. Because when I went in, I first went inside, I was like, it doesn't like feel that old. It feels like old dinery, you know what I mean? But not like, I've been in places that you're like, oh shit, this feels like really old. I mean, it's kind of dingy, but like that doesn't mean it feels like 100 years old. But it was cool. It does have good history. John Wayne, Marlene Dietrich, all these names. President Theodore Roosevelt ate a steak there. What didn't happen is people say James Dean ate his last meal there. He actually ate his last meal at Tips in Castaic. So I didn't put that in the piece though.
That's still cool. Still in Santa Clarita. We could still take that prize.
So, but it was fun being there. And I mean, like, dude, the oldest restaurant in LA, it's hilarious because LA, you see something that's like 50 years old and you're like, that's old. Here, where I'm from, there's Studio City. There's a restaurant called Casa Vega. Great place, Mexican place, like American Mexican. And it's 65 years old, right? And like, it gets all this credit as being this old timey place. And it is like in LA standards, like that's really old. But it's funny. Then you have like the Pantry downtown or Musso and Frank's, which is 100 years old. But then this blows everybody out of the water because it's not even like by a couple years. Like the next closest, oldest restaurant is this place called Big Dean's Cafe in Santa Monica, which is 1902. So this is 136 years, which beats anybody, 135 years, which beats anybody by, 16 years, 17 years. Yeah. Cool. So I thought it was pretty cool. So it's neat being there.
How do you view like Santa Clarita, like being like a outside,
Great question.
You want to offend us? Well, you can give us your honest answer.
Yeah. It's like,
all right. So this is interesting because I was thinking about this a lot. Number one, I have a history with Santa Clarita Valley because my dad's best friend when I was growing up lived in Valencia.
Oh, cool.
When Valencia was like a newish community, I guess. So I was like out here. I don't want to say a lot, but all the Super Bowl, every Super Bowl we went to was out here. And he used to have awesome Super Bowl parties. And I remember thinking back then, it was like a different kind of community. There's big parks, a lot of space. And this as a kid, I'm like, there's like a lot of space. And you could walk, kids would walk around in groups in the street. Like it wasn't like, even in the valley, like sure, we'd ride our bikes. And I know it's even different now. But like, it just felt like, I'm like, there's so many kids and like people running around and playing like in the streets. So I put that together as a kid. And then we used to go to sushi, at this place called Light and Healthy.
I love that.
Does that still exist?
Oh, absolutely.
He goes there like once a week.
Yeah, I go there like at least once a week. It's awesome.
Get out of here.
Yeah. If you like sushi, let's go.
It still exists.
It's still here.
Dude, I'm talking like 1989, bro.
I think it's
like,
the oldest sushi spot out here. Still tucked back in the like plaza.
That's
super
badass,
low key.
dude.
And they're still doing all you could eat, which is rare to find now after COVID too.
Yeah, the owner's name is Jack. So,
dude, okay, that's good to know. So we used to go there. And then as I grew older and started playing sports, we'd play, all the teams are like pretty good. There's a lot of good like sports teams out here. Valencia High was always, I was a baseball player. So it was like Valencia High, Hart. And then when I grew older, after that, I played baseball in an adult baseball league. And a lot of our games were at Masters College. Yeah. So I was out here. And my wife went to College of the Canyons for a while. So I kind of have, I don't want to say like a lot of experience, but like I've been up here and I'm sort of familiar with it. But here's what I think about it, truthfully. I think right now, Santa Clarita Valley is where the San Fernando Valley was probably like 30 to 50 years ago, where it kind of gets shunned as an afterthought. And people are like, ugh. And I'm saying on behalf of the Valley. Like city people are always like, ugh, the Valley. You know what I mean? And now Valley people are like, ugh, Santa Clarita. You know what I mean? But it's like, well, it's still new. Even though it's old, people have been here. Again, Saugus Cafe, stuff like that. The communities are just like really developing into like cities. And you can't have history and a deep culture if you haven't had people out there, like large populations and all that kind of stuff for a long time. So I feel like by the time our kids, my kids growing up, you guys have kids and grow up, Santa Clarita is going to have like a different, deeper history and culture because it is a cool place and it is like a dynamic place. And I sort of like driving around too, because I did a lot of driving today. It still has like elements of what I imagine or the Wild West, or whatever passes for the Wild West these days, like rugged scenery. And like, look, there's mountains in the valley, but everything's developed in the valley. You know what I mean? Like you still have large swaths of undeveloped land. Or I was driving again near the St. Francis Dam area where I'm like, dude, this is like wide open and it just feels like land. And you're like, you sort of have that impression of, I guess, what like settlers sort of felt at the same time while the city's developing and turning into that kind of stuff. So that's what I feel about Santa Clarita.
You definitely enjoy like all this. Like, you can tell.
I love it. I mean, like, I was like an LA nerd. Like, I mean, I guess I still am, but like growing up, I was always the guy that knew like every athlete that came out of LA, where I'd be like, Ozzie Smith, Locke High School, or like John Carlos Stanton, Sherman Oaks, Notre Dame High School, or like Jason Capono, Lakewood Artesia. Like, so I used to always be like LA pride.
Are you like a diehard Laker Dodger fan?
Dodgers and UCLA Bruins are like my two big teams. But here's the thing. Any LA team I love, except for the Angels. And I'm even getting...
I gotta go. I gotta get out of here.
You're an Angels guy?
I'm an Angels fan.
Yeah.
Well, how'd that work?
So
my sister doesn't know sports.
Yeah, no, but it's just like growing up, like my sister dated this guy that had season tickets, and we were always going to the Angels game.
From here?
They used to live in Valley Village.
So you got bribed into being a fan.
Yeah.
That's different. But you know, with Trout and Ohtani, they're exciting, and I still like them. I just can't really root for them. But Dodgers, UCLA Bruins. I also like USC, which is weird because I went to UCLA, and all my UCLA friends really pound me for that. But I always knew growing up, the only colleges I applied to were UCLA, USC, and Berkeley. Only reason I applied to Berkeley was to see if I could get in. It was always going to be UCLA or USC. USC offered me in and gave me like a nice deal. And I was like, dude, I'm forever thankful for that. I had friends that went to USC. I actually partied more in my first 2 years at USC than UCLA. So I have nothing but warm feelings. But yeah, Lakers, Clippers I like because my dad had season tickets to the Clippers in when they were first good with Danny Manning, Mark Jackson, Larry Brown was the coach. So I have like warm feelings about the Clippers. But basically anything LA, I'm like pro.
Where'd you go to high school?
James Monroe High School.
Okay.
Law and government magnet. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So have you learned all this LA stuff from doing the page? I know you have a huge sports background, but like, how do you even choose like the next topic?
Okay. So first, I'm not a historian. I'm not a walking encyclopedia. I'm just a curious guy that it's weird.
Disclaimer.
I like doing research because look, sometimes I'll be honest. Some people, even on the street, will like quiz me about stuff. And I'll be like, dude, I don't remember. I've done 300 episodes this year. Like I can't, I don't have a photographic memory. Like there's no way. But here's a great example, right? Like this is probably, a lot of them are planned. Like today I was excited about, planned it, did the research ahead of time, like kind of script what I want to cover. But one day I'm driving home. I was somewhere in Hollywood and I see this building. You guys ever go to Hollywood?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So there's a building called Crossroads of the World. And I'd always seen it. No reason to go there, but it just looked, it's a very unique building. And I was like, that had to be something. Why is it called Crossroads of the World? What does it mean? So I literally parked in front of it, looked it up, and it turns out that even though now it's office buildings, it was originally the first outdoor mall in all of the United States. And the reason it became a mall, and it was a small because malls weren't even a thing. The reason it even became a mall is because the original owner of the building got murdered in the building.
Nice.
And his wife, the widow, had to drive by it. And every time she drove by, she's like, oh, teary and brokenhearted. So she tore it down. And she had this vision of like the bazaars in Jerusalem. And she wanted to like build something that was similar to that. So there's always interesting stuff. And like, that's kind of my thing with LA. I had always been told, just like I just said about Santa Clarita, LA has no culture, LA has no history. It's like bullshit. Like you just need to look for it. It is true that maybe LA doesn't like celebrate its history like a lot of cities might, but it's because we're a new city. But there's so much interesting stuff that happened and continues to happen in LA. But to go back to your question about like, what am I going to cover? It's interesting because I first got discovered through food, right? Like, honestly, what put me on the map, I'm using air quotes, what put me on the map was this Eater LA article because I had covered like Fatburger, In-N-Out, all the places that had started in LA, right? Even, grocery stores like Vallarta, stuff like that. And so I sort of became known as this food guy, which is interesting because, again, I ate a shitload of fast food growing up. I don't know about you guys, like Taco Bell, McDonald's, but they all started in LA, which I find cool and fascinating. And the drive-thru started in LA. So like at first I was covering all that stuff, but then it's certain things like palm trees. Like how did palm trees get to be known as the symbol of Los Angeles? Palm trees aren't even from Los Angeles. Palm trees aren't native to Los Angeles, yet there's 35,000 of them in LA. I always say, you could go outside in Porter Ranch, Compton, San Pedro, wherever you are in LA, and you can see a palm tree. And like, that's pretty cool, yet they're not from LA. Or like squirrels. We have a house, we used to have fruit trees. Squirrels always eat our fruit. I'm like, what the fuck is up with these squirrels? Like, why are there squirrels everywhere? Squirrels aren't from Los Angeles. There's millions of them in Los Angeles. Turns out squirrels were brought here by the Civil War veterans who would go to all these VA hospitals to like retire and die, really. But they'd come out from the Civil War, move west where the climate was nice and easy on them. And they had pet squirrels, and they also had squirrels that they would keep for food. So like, but squirrels
How do you decide?
like everything. Dude, there's funny pictures because they literally dress up their squirrels. I got them in the episode. Like you see squirrels like dressed up in little costumes. It's crazy. But I don't know, anything that catches my eye that I feel like is interesting. I'm always like, is that from LA? Does that have an LA history? And then I just want to like get into it.
Yeah, that's cool. Every topic you do is just we're clicking in.
I'm trying. The one I put up today, which was interesting. Beverly Hills is the most surveilled city in the Western Hemisphere. There's one surveillance camera for every 17 residents of Beverly Hills. And when I went there, I found that out. When I went there, you start to notice, you're like, dude, there's a surveillance camera on every, not just light post, but basically every building. And it's interesting because you have both sides. Like, dude, that's why Beverly Hills is Beverly Hills, because they will bust your ass, whatever you're doing. But at the same time, during COVID, there were all those crimes and people jacking people for Rolexes and all that, high profile, broad daylight. So I get it from the police perspective, but civil liberties people are like, oh, you can't have all these cameras, blah, blah, blah. So I kind of like those debates and stuff like that. Another one was the oldest. This is what I kind of got in trouble on. Innocently, the oldest service station in Los Angeles. LA is like a car cult. Dude, like one of the coolest things about LA is that we're a city that developed around the car. The reason why LA, Santa Clarita to San Pedro is like a half-day drive, but it's all LA, which is like hilarious to me. But it's because of the car, because most cities developed from the inside out, right? There were downtowns, and then gradually people started like going to the suburbs and moving out. But as LA was developing, the freeway and the cars were invented. So people like immediately started going to all these different areas. So it's just so spread out, and there's like various centers. And even though there's a downtown, it's not like a hardcore downtown. So I thought the oldest service station in LA was like an interesting story, right? And it's in Eagle Rock. I go out there. I'd heard about it. And somebody DM me. They're like, you should cover this. I'm like, I should. That's a good idea. Go out there. And as I'm out at this old service station, it's an old decrepit building, right? Look, I've been to Eagle Rock a couple dozen times. Never noticed it. It's right there on Colorado Boulevard. But it's just an old building that maybe should be condemned. As I show up, they're putting the fence up outside it, like, do not enter anymore. But it was just like the workers. I was like, yo, do you mind if I go? I'm just filming this thing. They're like, yeah, go inside. So I'm filming. The owner of the property comes out. He's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, dude, I have this thing called LA in a Minute. I'm trying to film. He's like, you need to get off the property. And I was like, can I just finish? He's like, you can finish, but from the sidewalk or the street. So I start talking to him, and it turns out that the building is people are trying to save it, like historic preservation. This is the oldest. The reason I was interested and the reason people are trying to save it. However, he's like, dude, I paid $2.1 million for this, and I don't want to destroy it, but I want to move it, right? Because I want to develop this land. And he's like, let's preserve it, but let's preserve it maybe somewhere else. And the thing was, it was a service station only for 8 years. So even though it was built in 1919, which sounds crazy old, at the same point, you're like, it was really only this service station for a short period of time. And then it became like a produce stand, a plumbing shop, a real estate office. So I started to be like, you know what? Like, dude, this guy paid a shitload of money. And now he's like debating with all these people who don't even live in Eagle Rock. You know what I mean? Which is kind of the thing to me where I'm just like, I get it. I get historic preservation. It is important. But again, you got to balance it. So I do the report as fairly as I can. I include this guy in it. You know, because I let him say, I try to be fair on everything I cover, right? I try not to like take sides. Yeah. I just want to promote like LA and shine a positive light on LA. And I put him in it, and it was probably the most hateful comments I've received. DMs like, you're a fraud, you're a fake, you say you love LA. If you really loved LA, you wouldn't have let him go on. Like, is he paying you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, is he paying? I'm like, if that shit would have been a service station for the last 103 years, and he's trying to tear it down, I'd be the first guy out there like, you can't tear it down. It hasn't even been a service station since 1939. Like, what? Why didn't anybody try to save it for the last 80 plus years if it's so important? And now you living in Pacific Palisades, you're trying to be like, no, we need to save this thing in Eagle Rock? Like, come on. Yeah. So like, anyway, interesting stories are cool. And I don't like the drama, but it does make it sort of spicy.
Yeah.
Oh, you got a lot more.
Keeps it alive.
Yeah.
I bet you have a few more stories of those. Yeah, there's always someone you're gonna piss off. You can't make everyone happy, is what we've even learned.
Big time.
With you being a sports fan, what do you think about, people always say like LA fans aren't like real fans? Like how a city like Boston.
I love this topic. I love it. So I'm a UCLA fan. UCLA does not.
But also USC fan, so you're like the prime example.
True. That's a good one. That's a really good one. But UCLA does not show up for games, right? Especially, I don't know if you guys remember, they actually had a great team this year. But at the beginning of the year, they were drawing like 30,000. They said it was 30,000 fans at the Rose Bowl. It was literally like 17,000 for a football game. And I'm sitting there, like, people across the country, all the memes and all this shit. Oh, UCLA, Los Angeles, da-da-da. I'm like, motherfucker. It's 103 degrees. One of these games. It was literally 103 degrees. And I'm like, we're in LA during the middle of the day on a Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go to the beach. I'm not going to go hang out and do something like dope. Yes, I love UCLA and I love the football program. But this is like a non-conference opponent, beginning of the season. And the Rose Bowl has zero shade. You know what I mean?
The seats are super close.
Super uncomfortable. And I'm like, we're not real fans. Right. And the same thing with the Dodger game. Like, we just have shit to do. Like, a lot of shit all over the city.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, LA fans only come out if there's a winner. Be like, goddamn right. Because we have so many options. And it's
that's a great point. Because, Green Bay fans, it's like, there's nothing else to do.
The whole city stops on game day in Green Bay. Yeah. So, I mean, like, we're real. You want to ask if we're real fans? Go to a fucking Dodger game. You know what I mean? Talk to Laker fans. Like, the passion is there, the intensity is there, the knowledge is there. And just because we don't fill every seat, every game, from hours before the game tailgating to hours after sitting in the parking lot drinking beers, reminiscing. No, there's a lot of shit to do here.
And people give us like they'll make fun of like Laker fans because like our court side is like full of celebrities, but it's like those tickets are $25,000. You know what I mean? Like Floyd Mayweather's like going to that game because it's like not like a regular Samaritan paying that,
and they live here, dude.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That's the thing. Like celebrities aren't going to games in Kansas City and Minnesota because those cities aren't full of celebrities. Right. Both great cities. Not talking shit about those cities, but
that's a good point.
Yeah. No, and I saw you got featured on some news channels recently, radio talk shows.
Yeah.
And they just saw you, or just you been getting around?
So honestly, that's all kind of new, and I'm smiling because it is cool. Like I like it. I do like the exposure. But I feel like it's interesting. I feel like I'm doing something, I don't want to say unique because somebody out there is going to be like, oh, I'm doing the same thing or whatever. But I don't know. I'm not trying to be somebody that's like, let me teach you about this stuff. I'm genuinely curious about this city. I'm passionate about it. And my attitude is like, come on, let's go check it out like together. And I think people respond to that. And on the news channels, like KTLA, I'm going to be on Spectrum. I don't know if you guys know what Spectrum News is next week. It was like formerly Time Warner, but like there's a void for that. Like people, you guys are way too young. There used to be a guy called Huell Hauser, right? He had multiple shows, but his famous one was called California Gold.
What are you doing?
But he was this dude, and it was funny. And I remember as a kid, I'd watch it, and I'd be like, this corny ass guy. Because he'd walk around with a microphone. There weren't cordless mics back then, so there's like a long cord on his microphone. And somebody with a camera would be like following him. It looked like it was public access, so it looked like very low budget. And at the time, as a kid, I was like, get this cornball out of here. But now in retrospect, I'm like, dude, I'm kind of doing the same thing. Like, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. Because again, like, whether it's Griffith Park or like, honestly, the history of Santa Clarita, I was looking up the history of Santa Clarita today. First of all, I didn't know Santa Clarita's only been a thing since 1987. Like, there's been the Santa Clarita Valley, but Santa Clarita as a city's only been incorporated since 1987. I also didn't know that it was like, Valencia, Saugus, Newhall, and Canyon Country, right? So all this I'm learning. And then I also didn't know that Santa Clarita was almost called City of the Canyons. There was a vote in 1987. Did you guys know this?
I did not know that.
So there's a vote in 1987 for the citizens. Okay, we're going to incorporate. Do you want to be known as City of the Canyons, La Mancha, which in Spanish means the stain.
Yeah.
I don't even know how that was a candidate. Although, you know, it's funny. I always think of Boca Raton in Florida, which I'm like, dude, the name of your city is Rat Mouth? Like, who approved that, bro? Like, why would you want to live in a city called Rat Mouth? But anyway, so it's City of the Canyon, La Mancha, or Santa Clarita. And Santa Clarita won by something like 300 votes over City of the Canyon. So this very well could be called like City of the Canyons today. But my point is, every city has those stories. And in LA, there's 88 incorporated cities and 120 unincorporated cities. And they're all fascinating. They all have these good stories. And forget the cities, there's the people, which I haven't even delved into. Like, I did Snoop Dogg, Vin Scully, Art LeBeau, Jonathan Gold, Richie Valens. But there's 1,000 different famous people from LA. And then you get all the different like murders and stuff, like Hillside Strangler, Night Stalker, OJ. I mean, the content in LA is just like limitless. And you can go like so many different directions. Or one of my favorite, which goes back to the aqueduct, is how do we get our water? What do we do with our trash? Like stuff like that. I just love those stories. Where does the rainwater go? Oh, we're in a drought. Well, what happens when these atmospheric rivers come and like there's floods at every intersection? What happens to that water? Why don't we do anything with it? So, I mean, LA, there's like crazy stories and everything's like fun and fascinating. I think I went on a total tangent.
No, but I love the angle that you're doing like real research. You know what I mean? Like you're not just out there with your phone, like a lot of like social media.
You know what's funny that I want to say is you mentioned research. For whatever reason, I get excited by that. I kind of always have. I know it's like weird thing. But one thing that's bugged me even way before this is that quote unquote misinformation, but not even on like a macro, like Trump, Obama, like not even that standpoint, but just people talking about, oh, did you hear that blah, blah, blah. Or like, oh, do you know if you drink da, 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 da. Ever since I was younger, I'm always like, I just want to know, like, is that really true? You know what somebody said. So it's just been natural for me to like research and like do a dive into that stuff. And even still, I get multiple sources on all my stuff. Like I really want to be, and it doesn't mean I'm flawless. Like there's been a couple mistakes that I made. One big one that's like embarrassing was on my lowrider piece, which was one of my favorite episodes too. And I got Whittier, the city, and Whittier Boulevard, which is in East LA, confused. And luckily I did a good job on the rest of the episode, so people didn't like hammer me too hard, but like that was a stupid mistake on my part. But I do a lot of research. I enjoy it. And I pride myself on like being accurate. And like you said, not just being, I just heard this phrase, maybe you guys know it, a lifestyle vlogger, which is somebody that's like, look where I am and what I'm wearing and what I'm eating and what I'm doing. But yeah, like I'm curious and it's fun. Like it's fun to me to learn all this stuff about these different communities. So
Absolutely.
It'll be great for your, you have a son?
Yeah.
One son? Like for him growing up, like having all that like knowledge, you know, like that's cool. Yeah.
Hopefully. At first he was watching them and now he's, you know where he is now. Whenever it's like black and white, as soon as it like the black and white scenes come on, he's out. You know what I mean? Like so when it's like the real historical ones, he's like, that one was boring. I was like, that's not boring. But I know what he means. Like as soon as it's black and white, he's like, never mind.
How old is he?
9 now.
It's a good audience for you too. It's interesting. Yeah.
It's interesting. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. After all LA you explored, I asked what questions. Everyone was like asking what his favorite LA restaurant is. You could do fast food, you could do sit down, you could tap into them all.
What a great question again. Favorite, okay, look, I've been thinking about this recently. My favorite like food to eat, like if my wife and I, again, when COVID was over and we're like, what restaurant should we go out to? Jitlada, which is this Thai place in East Hollywood, made famous by Jonathan Gold, who was a famous food writer for the LA Times, but it really is good. I had always thought like Thai food was like pad Thai and chicken satay. This is the first time it like opened my mind to that. Plus it gets like crazy spicy, which I love. But right now, like I want to go to Musso and Frank's again, just because, and again, it's not even about the food, but that experience is so cool. The waiters are in tuxes. You get a martini with a sidecar. So they give you a martini, but it's also like a double, like 2 martinis because they give you the martini and then this like thing next to it. But just the experience feels, it really does feel, it was open in 1919. So it feels like it's old school, like Los Angeles or what I imagine LA was like back then. So it really does transport you. But to be honest, also like there's nothing like In-N-Out, Fat Burger, Taco Bell when you're drunk, dude. Like, and probably, okay, I can't eat this that often, but once or twice a year to get Tommy's like double chili cheeseburger with chili cheese fries, dude, and just pig out. Like, even thinking about it right now, I'm like, that might be at that moment that I'm eating it, my favorite meal. You know what I mean? And to know that all those places come from LA, and I know fast food, obesity, I get it. It's unhealthy, heart attacks, you know what I mean? But that shit is so good.
Moderation.
And I have the pride that it comes from LA. I think it's really cool that all this stuff comes from Los Angeles.
That's cool. Easy to please then.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then earlier you said people like quiz you on the street. Has someone come up to you and been like, "Hey, are you LA in a minute?" Or
yeah, I kind of get
That's
I kind of get recognized, which is cool. And it sort of like tickles my wife. Not probably bad turn of phrase right there. Like, she gets a kick out of it, my son gets a kick out of it, and I get a kick out of it. But it's honestly cool to be recognized, and I don't think of it as like there's a celebrity. I think it's just like people because they're always like, thank you for what you do, and that makes it rewarding for me because LA. Again, I love to see this LA pride. And this is something that I discovered with LA in a minute. And I knew it. Look, again, all you need to do is go to a Dodger game and figure out everybody has LA pride, right? But I didn't really, I guess I underestimated how much people do care about like the facts and the history and learning those things that are able to connect you with Los Angeles and different elements of LA, whether it is a restaurant or a park or whatever it is. And people really connect with it. And one of my favorite things recently, this is the stuff that I love to hear, right? And somebody said this to me recently, is I saw your episode on Silmar and I didn't give a shit about Silmar, but that episode was dope, you know? And I was like, yes, because that's what I strive to do because we drive all the time, right? And you always see, one for me was Boyle Heights, right? Always heard about Boyle Heights my whole life. You drive on the freeway, the next exit, blah, 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 Boyle Heights, whatever. And I know it's a thing, and I know like people have Boyle Heights pride, but I didn't really know what it was about. And then just going there, observing, like eating at some places, and then learning the history, you're like, dude, this is dope. And like Boyle Heights to me is a perfect representation of LA because A, it was one of the first areas where African-American people could buy property. B, it became a Japanese community. Then internment happened. All the Japanese got sent to concentration camps, which is terrible. But then the Jewish people moved in, so it became like a huge Jewish area. That's where the famous Cantor's Deli was started. And then after the Jews moved out, all the Latino people moved in, and now that's what it is. But it's like you see that evolution of just one community, and there's still the remnants. Like there's black businesses, Japanese businesses, Jewish businesses, of course, the Latino businesses. And you're like, this is dope. Like this is LA. And again, every community has badass stories like that. So, I mean, that makes me happy, and people learning about that and enjoying that and learning outside of their normal like day-to-day commute. Like, oh shit, like maybe next time I drive by and I see Boyle Heights, I'll get off there because I know El Tepeyac is there and they have that 5-pound burrito or whatever the case may be, you know? So I think that that's like dope.
That's badass.
It is.
Well, right on. Do you have any other upcoming huge projects coming out or still just releasing episodes and episodes?
Dude, I'll be honest, is I would love to be able to do this full time, right? So I want to get up in the morning and be like, which episodes, plural, are we filming today every day? Because I do not get tired of this. And in fact, I always wish I had more time. Even the ones I did today, I almost feel like shortchanged because I'm like, dude, I do want to do an episode on Valencia. The only thing I like just started looking up and it's like Valencia, the master planned community. And it's like, again, I remember going back to my background of growing up in the 80s and early 90s and coming out here for Super Bowls. How did Valencia become like that? But it's interesting because there's always more to do and more to learn. So to your point, bigger projects, find a way to make some serious income on this. That's number one. Number two, I would eventually like a show like Huelhauser had, something along those lines, whether it's in the same vein as Huelhauser, something different. But as far as a big project, we are doing a long form video slated to film in January. And I think like that's going to be a 22 to 30 minute video. And I kind of hope to use that as a springboard into longer form stuff. Cause 3 minutes is really limiting. One thing that, and I'm always thankful for anybody recognizing me or thanking me for doing a piece. But whenever people are like, you forgot to talk about blah, blah, blah in the video, I'm like, dude, I have 3 minutes. It's called 1 minute. First of all, some people are like, you went over a minute. I'm like, dude, bro. But second of all, I only have 3 minutes. Yeah. So how can I cover like the history of how we got our water in 3 minutes? Like, I feel like I do like a pretty decent.
You're going to forget something.
Silmar was a great episode. Like, I love that. And there was a lot of important stuff, but somebody's like, you didn't mention Gravity Hill, which is cool. It's like this place you park and your like car rolls backwards and all that stuff uphill. But like, I'm like, I have to cut some stuff. You know what I mean? But yeah, so I like the idea of having longer form, and that's the idea, is to have like a bigger canvas in which to like create the LA.
Do you have like a plan on how you're gonna monetize it yet?
Tell you what pisses me off is I got other like creator friends, if you will, that are like, how much are you making on your reels? And I'm like, $0 and 0 cents. And they're like, what? You have more followers than me, and every month I get X amount of $100. So if anybody who's watching, listening to this knows what the fuck I'm doing wrong, because I know that I have as many eyeballs, as much engagement, as many followers as other people, but for some reason Instagram's not giving me bonuses on my reels. But that's number one. TikTok, I know once I get to 100,000, I'm at 98, they'll start paying me like something. I know it's not going to be big bucks. And then number two, and I'm always conscious of this, I've been linking people out to my YouTube, which is for the most part the same content, though I try to do one YouTube exclusive every couple of weeks. But that's because once I get 4,000 lifetime hours watched on YouTube, YouTube will start paying me as well. But I want to get some like revenue sources. What I won't do is sponsored posts that aren't in line with something I'm already doing, right? So the two I already did, I did do 2 sponsored posts, which isn't like that big. One was for Gooder sunglasses. And the only reason I did that, I wear sunglasses in basically every post. And they were like, you wear sunglasses in every post anyway. But they did a giveaway with Randy's Donuts. Do you guys know what Randy's Donuts is? The big old donut. So I had Randy's Donuts literally on my calendar for that month. So I was like, that's perfect. I'll do that. Number 2 was Flex Alert, which I did this week, which was so terrible on their part because they contacted me in June. You guys know what a Flex Alert is? No. So
it's not a life alert?
No. So Flex Alert is like we have rolling blackouts, right? Because we have power issues. Flex Alert is you're supposed to turn off your major appliances between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. You're supposed to turn off the light when you leave a room. You're supposed to leave your thermostat at 78, even in the summer. So I'm about like conserving power, and I do think it's important that we don't have blackouts. And that's state of California. So I'm like, I'll take that money. But we produced a piece in June. And I start the piece with like, in this land of abundant sunshine, you know, it's all hot. It's 100 degrees in the valley. And they didn't approve it until last week. And they're like, oh, you should run it. And I was like, it's fucking raining and it's dreary. And you want me to put on this one about it's all hot and like, you know, conserve your power. And they were like, oh, don't worry about it. But I guess that's like government bureaucracy. But like sponsor posts, what I won't do is like restaurants have approached me and been like, how much will it cost to like review my restaurant? I'm like, I mean, I'll go do a piece on it if you have like some awesome history, which is really cool. And this is, I do like people that solicit me. But again, to me, I feel like, and I'm not poo-pooing money of any kind because money is important in this society. It is. But like $200, $300 isn't going to be life-changing money. And it's not worth me talking about some place that opened in 2019 that isn't really that good, that's paying me $300 to be like Ellie in a minute. But if you're a restaurant and you don't even want to pay, but you're like, yo, we opened in 1902, which is this place that I'm going to do in Burbank. I'll actually give them a shout out. There's this place called Chili John's, and they're in Burbank. It's a chili restaurant, which is interesting because I'm like, how can you have a restaurant that's like just based on chili? But they opened in 1946. So I'm like, they must be doing something right. But it still wasn't enough where I'm like, oh, I'm going to cover a chili restaurant in 1946. And then they kept hitting me up and they keep like tagging me on their stuff. And I'm like, dude, weather's getting cold. Like it is like kind of chilly season. And then so one day I'm like, I'll look it up and see if there's history. Turns out they started in 1902 in Wisconsin and then moved out here in 1946. And I'm like, all right, now we got a story there. So that's dope. And they're not even paying, but I'm like, dude, I think that's dope. Whenever, again, in LA, anything that's old with that kind of history is interesting, and people enjoy that. So, yeah, I want a bigger picture deal. I'd love like TV streaming, something of that nature, but just like a steady income to keep doing LA in a minute is my priority.
That's awesome.
Cool. Yep. That's our homework then. We're going to find a way to monetize you, and we'll have a whole 5-year plan.
That would be dope.
Yeah. No, but I mean, do you have any questions for us? I know.
Can you tell me? So you guys are big. How'd you guys get your following?
Honestly, through COVID, like we would just post events every now and then, and we kind of had to rebrand. It was SCV Nightlife page at a time, so we'd post like bar specials, happy hours, and then COVID hit. We had to rebrand because we were posting COVID news and stuff, and they're like, "This isn't nightlife." So we did the What's Up SCV. Everyone's at home on their phones.
Yeah.
We did like small business shout outs and stuff, and like,
a lot of door knocking, a lot of free at the beginning. A lot of people, we would walk in and they'll be like, "Oh, we're from What's Up SCV." Like, who are you? Get out. We have more important things to do. And we were just trying to give everything out basic again, like for free. And even that was hard, but as time went on, now we've become a staple in the community, what it seems like.
Today. Yeah, it is. You guys have a good following, good engagement. Do you guys have jobs, or is this like this?
I was able to walk away from my full-time job. So yeah, this pays the bills for us.
That's badass.
Yeah.
How's the podcast scene, by the way?
Podcast.
Is that bigger? Is the podcast scene bigger than the social media scene for you guys?
No. Our social media scene is definitely
Instagram's the heavy hitter. Everyone always wants to know the news, the updates, but this is just like
networking for us. Like, it's super cool to meet people like us, and see
this is where it starts, by the way. The culture of you asked what I think of like Santa Clarita Valley. This is like where it starts, and you guys can like help develop that culture, and that's what you guys are doing, and that's why this is pretty dope. This is what I want to know of you guys. What are the dopest things in Santa Clarita?
Us. That's a trick question.
That's a good answer, dude.
Question.
Yeah, well, right now we have an event going on, a food truck event at the same time.
Yeah.
So really, the whole idea is he lived in LA, K-Town, and he was always saying, like, we need to bring LA out here.
Yeah, I grew up out here, but like
that?
we would always have to go to LA for bike rides, for parties, for events. So we're definitely bringing the events out here. There's not a lot of people that do.
Maybe we can sit down, figure something out, and just help this grow even bigger.
That's literally awesome. And going back again to that analogy with the San Fernando Valley, it used to be you have to pull people to get to the valley. Like, nobody wants to go over the hill and blah, blah, blah. And then lo and behold, you start to get communities like Studio City, Sherman Oaks, North Hollywood, like NoHo, especially with like the train and, people starting to take mass transit and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's what I see in my mind is the next iteration of Santa Clarita. So I think that's dope.
Yeah, thanks. It's a growing city. I mean, there's how many out here now? Like recordedly 400,000
people?
Yeah.
Latin 290. So we're about to break 300,000.
Santa Clarita is the third biggest city in Los Angeles County.
So
I just read that. Yeah.
Today. Yeah. We're known more than that stupid Netflix show and Six Flags, but
Dude.
Santa Clarita Diet.
Oh yeah,
Santa Clarita Diet.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But we're learning a lot. It's just the same thing. We don't get paid for our reels at all.
Yeah.
For some reason, we can't figure that out either.
We post explicit content. I know that's why. I don't think you curse on your videos or anything, right?
No.
So I don't know. That's interesting.
We can check it out.
No, I don't even think it is that, because a dude was a guy that I talked to who does get paid. He's telling me, bro, he's like, these younger kids, all they do is like orgasm noises. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
he likes that content.
they're like, bruh, orgasm noise. Bruh. And he's like, ching, ching, ching. Like that like pays the bills. Yeah. So that's your department.
Yeah. He's the one that pays. Yeah. No, that's crazy. It's crazy.
How often do you guys come out to LA?
Now, very rarely. Just we're trying to like grow it out here.
Just stay here.
That's fucking cool, dude.
Yeah. It's just because, like, why would we be going out there? Like, we're here, we're trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, we try to go, like, we just went to an event actually last week. Like, it was a speakeasy event, and we went as a team, and we're like, okay, let's get some ideas going. And we went there, like, hey, like, this isn't that impressive to us. No shame to them, because what we're doing is like, we hold a high credibility.
Actually, you might like them. So they said that
it was the first.
They're the first like distillery for like hard liquor. So like tequila, not
First.
tequila, was it?
Yeah.
Where? Like
For LA. So they gave this like history about it, how like they weren't there's like stages to their alcohol license.
Yeah.
But in LA, they are the first one to be able to be brewery for just hard liquor. Yeah, what was it?
Yeah.
What were we drinking?
It tastes like gasoline.
Gin. Yeah, so they made gin. They made
rum. I think there was some rum too.
It
get you
was
the
tough.
information
We're
for
not heavy drinkers.
Yeah.
So we thought it was gonna be kind of like an experience in food. We kind of just booked it, and no, you're good.
You're
And then,
good, no worries.
but yeah, it was very interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
You know, we got to show you what it is.
What are some of your like favorite places though? Honestly, out here.
Light and healthy for sure.
That's crazy.
Little
Yes,
secret
fucking-
tip, right? If you bring him sriracha, because it's so hard to find. You
Oh yeah, so that ended anyway.
That ended?
Yeah, that ended.
Wait,
But
what
yeah.
was it though? What were
So
you
when there was a sriracha shortage, if you brung him like a sriracha, he would give you like some free sushi.
Yeah, a bottle of sriracha. He would
really?
give you free sushi because that's how bad.
I did an episode on the
Chi-Chi's out
sriracha
here,
shortage.
though. That Italian place is great. And they're 19...
Yeah, they've been out here.
It says
Chi-Chi's.
it on the sign. Chi-Chi's.
Oh, got it.
Chi-Chi's Italian,
Early
they're good.
1900s.
So there's something with Chi-Chi's because there used to be Chi-Chi's in the valley.
Oh, yeah,
now
they're-
they're gone. But I saw
one in
something
North
about the history,
Yeah.
and I passed that Chi-Chi's today, and I was
really
like,
good. Like, I
no.
think
And I remember I used to eat the ones in the valley, but I was like, I know there's some history there. I don't know it offhand, but I was like, I should research that.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
I don't know if you need to go, but you're
I do
good.
need to
You're,
go,
you're
but
good. You're good. You can jam out. You're good. He's gonna head out.
Dude, good meeting you. Dude.
Another cool thing. I don't know if you know about it.
See you later. See you
Adios.
later.
I'll see you. Off of Sand Canyon is a baby cemetery from like the 1900s, and and on the
Okay,
it's
we
a
got
baby
him.
cemetery, and on the headstones it says
Where?
like right off of Sand Canyon. In
Only
Canyon
for
Country.
babies.
Yeah, I
That's
think it's
freaky and a
preserved.
great episode.
Yeah, I
of the
went
book.
over there and people left like toys there, and the toys are all old, very creepy.
Is it the one under the big tree?
I don't know. It's like you have to go under the bridge in Sand Canyon. Have you guys know about those? The baby cemetery off Sand Canyon.
Come on.
A monkey cemetery?
Come on.
You see, we
I know.
got a lot to do out
Yeah, I
here.
know.
Where's Placerita Canyon, by the way?
That's Sand Canyon. That's
Is that close?
That's towards it.
Do you guys know
Where
that
Masters is.
that's the first place that gold was discovered in California?
No way.
Yeah, in Placerita Canyon.
Okay.
So
Really?
I want to check that. Yeah, yeah. To play
That's
baseball.
Pastor
Yeah.
King.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, so I got to check that out. So that's what I'm saying. There's all kinds of interesting spots, dude. Like everything. Baby cemetery, though. That's freaky, bro.
Yeah, super freaky. I gotta get when you're out here. We gotta do a collab. I saw you do a collab like top 5 free things to do in LA. You collaborated
Yeah.
with someone that was awesome.
Yeah,
Dude, let's do a Santa Clarita one.
Absolutely.
let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you were saying like how you would want to monetize, like honestly, like I think what you were talking about is getting just like other companies where you'll just like give them a shout out in the middle of your video, so that way
It's like a little commercial.
yeah.
They
They do it on
really-
they do it on YouTube now. Like
And I know
Yeah.
look, my wife listened to some podcasts and I'm always like overhearing them. And I know exactly what you're talking about, where it doesn't seem like a tacky commercial, right? Like I hear it, I'm like, oh, it's
Or
not,
like they'll
you
do-
know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
not tasteful.
and it's only
but
10 seconds, so 10, 15 seconds.
it's not like offensive or like a super commercial. Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. And it's just like, oh, hey, like today I'm at In-N-Out, and it's like, and I'm here thanks to yada yada yada, and then you just go into
Advertisers, companies, if you're hearing this, please reach out at LA in a minute. I'm interested. Now those kind of shout outs are interesting. But
absolutely.
people want like a full episode. I'm like, dude, you've only been around
Oh, you
4
just tell them.
years.
Yeah, you just tell them like that's not what I do, so I'm not the right one for you, and move on.
But it's cool that you're able. You don't want to break your brand to like make a couple $100. Like
Question for
stay
you.
the course.
Why are you wearing a Yankees hat?
I'm from New York, but I'm a Dodgers fan. But I grew up. Yeah, I play baseball too. So
I like the Yankees.
Brooklyn
By the
Dodgers,
way,
you know?
for the record,
Right
I
on.
like the Yankees. Yeah.
you can't not like the Yankees. You know, best team in the world. But I'm a Dodgers fan. I'll go to Dodger Stadium. Not a Clippers fan.
That's dope.
Not an Angels fan either.
Joe, you can walk home tonight.
Wait, what other teams do you like, by the way?
So
Raiders. This guy bleeds
Ra-
Raiders.
Yes,
Dude.
I'm a Raiders fan.
I grew up Raiders fan, bro. Yesterday was Bo Jackson's birthday, by the way. You know that?
Oh, I like that. I like that right away.
Dude, that was my favorite. I mean, still probably the best athlete I've ever seen. But growing up, I used to go to the Coliseum and watch Raiders games. Marcus Allen, Bo Jackson. Like, dude, that was fun. And then Tecmo Bowl and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah, so my family's like really big with the Raiders. They're like jerseyed out and all that stuff. Cookouts. They're like breaking TVs. It's just
Okay, that's intense.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Raider hat over here.
Yeah,
Raider
yeah.
hat over here.
This guy bleeds Lakers, and yeah.
He's always yelling.
No, they're getting better. They're getting better. Every time.
You can't
I
get
feel
worse.
like
I don't think you can get worse.
Wait,
They're well below 500.
It's all right.
Tell me for a sec. I still don't understand. You have 3 Hall of Famers. How are they that bad? How does it just not work? And I know it doesn't work. I watch them play, but like
they're all ball dominant. That's the thing. They're Hall of Famers, but they need the ball. So there's only one ball on the team. It's really hard.
3 egos versus.
And
each other.
let me ask you about Anthony Davis. Why doesn't he take Westbrook took so much heat for so long, and that guy is the biggest heart. He has such a big heart and such a huge motor. LeBron takes a lot of heat. I get why people hate on him, but I kind of love him, to be honest. I know he's trying his hardest. I know he cares, all this kind of stuff. But Anthony Davis is the one who somehow nobody talks shit about. That guy, like, somebody does this, and he's like, oh, I'm down. And it's like he's going to miss, like, 6 games, bro. Like,
You see, that could be your next episode.
dude.
Why is Anthony Davis flopping?
He's on sports for a whole episode. So long.
Dude,
And he does take a little bit of heat, but like the thing is, he's not the worst on the team. It's really, the team is really badly constructed.
no, he's good, but, like, I feel like there's no heart there. And that's what bothers me.
You're just big paychecks.
Yeah.
They're massive paychecks.
Dude, remember all the heat Dwight Howard? There was like billboards like Dwight Coward at the time. Like LA don't play around. Like you don't turn your back on LA.
What other city has multiple teams of the same thing?
It's just LA and New York.
Like, it's
probably.
Yeah, New
wild.
York, New York. But like you said, like you go to one game and you know the pride. Like you see the LA Dodger fan, he's screaming his heart out, and he just got off like an 8-hour shift, but he's at that fucking game. He's got his Dodger dog in his hand.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like mad respect.
Right.
But
That's right.
yeah, LA's where it's at. That's what I'm saying.
Have you seen your insights?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Your insights on your Instagram on like where everything is like
numbers wise, like
yeah, like
how many
what?
people your views?
Yeah, I mean,
Comments and
obviously,
stuff.
yeah. But what do you mean? What's the
no,
question?
it's just because so like that's how we monetize like our sales by showing them those numbers.
So we
So you do outreach. You guys do sales outreach.
Yeah, so we talk to businesses like head on.
yeah.
We'd be like, hey, like
Who does the outreach? Who's the sales guy? You?
yeah.
That's and you'll be like, we reach this many people. We have this kind of engagement. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, we'll send you our whole package so you could see.
Hold on. Going back to the Lakers for a second. That's what I just checked on, folks. I want to make sure I have it right. Do you guys know that the Lakers, I did an episode on this. The Lakers started, everybody knows they're from Minneapolis, right?
Yep.
Do you know before then where they were?
Trick question.
Lakers started as the Detroit Gems before they were the Minneapolis Lakers. And nobody talks about that. Nobody knows that. The Detroit
back.
Gems in the 1930s. That's right.
That's before black and white.
But just so you know, I thought that
Interesting.
when I found that out, I was like super excited. Nobody really cares that much because your guys' reaction was perfect because you're like, who cares? But here was my point. I've been like a hardcore Laker fan since the 80s. My dad literally took me to Showtime Lakers at the Fabulous Forum, and I remember that as a kid. And like growing up, Lakers fan, I collected basketball cards, all this kind of stuff. Magic, yeah, Byron Scott, Michael Cooper, all those guys. Kareem, Vlade Divac, into Magic Johnson getting HIV, Sedale 3, Terry Teagle, Doug Christie.
Really? That's wild.
Big time. And
Like if he gets a sweat on me, I might get it.
you're talking about Karl Malone?
Yeah, Karl Malone.
Karl Malone. Yeah, that's right. That's
Damn.
right. But so I'm this huge Laker fan. Of course, Minneapolis, you like, oh, George Mikan, that's back in the day. But somewhere along the line, I saw that they were the Detroit Gems. And I'm like, my whole thing was like, how have I never even heard that? You figure as like a sports nerd or sports fan, because I knew the Dodgers, obviously Brooklyn Dodgers. Yeah. And that name comes from the Brooklyn Trolley Dodgers. And I'd even heard they were the Brooklyn Bridegrooms for a while. That was one of their nicknames. Yeah. But I'd heard all that, but I never once heard that the Lakers were in Detroit, like before, especially because their rivalry with the Pistons, like for a while in like the early 90s or whatever, late 80s. So I just thought that was super interesting, but your guys' reaction was like, you know, sometimes when you post, right, are you like excited, like, oh shit, this one's going to be dope. Like you just know that some posts are going to be like dope and people are going to get like crazy. That one is like, I can't wait. It was like, I think it was the day before the season started too, or the day that the season started. And I was like, oh man, this is dropping a bomb. Nobody knows
just throwing
this
a grenade in a room.
Yeah, and I was like, nobody knows this shit. And it was like completely average, maybe even lower than average. I was like, what? Like nobody cares? And I'm talking to my Laker fan friends. They all have the same reaction as you guys. They're like, yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, it's a long time ago, blah, blah.
If it ain't LA, we don't want to hear about it.
Yeah. So,
that's what it is.
But yeah, you never know. I mean, sometimes you know, but you never know.
Yeah, we were actually talking about that. We posted that MMA one is still in my head.
That was crazy.
Like that it's doing so well. Yeah. Like it's just
it's shock value.
Yeah, I guess.
Wait,
But
why? People love
So
it.
like we I guess you can explain it probably better on like how we post, and like we kind of the first time we posted like a gym MMA kind of a thing, we didn't think it was gonna do well, but it just
they're like an octagon.
flying collars, like
Yeah, but it always surprises. It's at our mall. We have a thing called the Canyon. It's the only like music venue in town.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the House of Blues.
Yeah.
And they're having an MMA match there.
cage fighting.
Cage fighting. They have like
Was that called the Canyon Club at one point?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Okay. Go on.
And they're having like having two punk bands play before. Shout out Public Nuisance. And then they're having cage fighting, and then after they have like an EDM show. So it's just like seems like someone just closed their eyes and picked three things
kinda
out of a hat.
dope, though.
Yeah,
It's
so we're
wild.
definitely going.
Yeah, we're gonna
definitely
be
going.
there.
But are the women the one fighting?
No.
That's what it seems like.
No. They're the showgirls. They're the ring
I don't
girls.
know. I don't know what it is. But yeah, there's like women, like there's like women on it, and we're probably gonna get like a lot of hate for this.
Yeah.
So let's just see, because our page is very family oriented.
Yeah.
But no, man, it's just like
People are like, yeah, when is it?
This
Or
is
like,
great.
one
Like-
guy's like, how can I fight? Like, do you still have room? Telling him his like weight limit. I'm like, God damn.
Yeah,
like,
so
it's
it's like,
wild out here.
yeah, so it's cool.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't want to see people beating the crap out of each
Oh,
other?
That's
you
what I'm
know?
saying. I'm like from an outside. I'm not
Yeah.
that surprised.
We
but-
use like everything pisses people off, like you know. So we thought we like, oh my god, fighting, but like people are interested,
Yeah.
so it should be a packed house.
Norm now at this point.
Yeah, a lot of anger, a lot of COVID built up at home
Dude,
anger.
again, Santa Clarita Wild West, bro.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's funny.
From an outside perspective, what do you think we're missing besides Raising Cane's and a Sonic?
Like you're saying from Santa
For
Clarita?
Santa Clarita, yeah, and a Porto's. God damn it, that's all
Okay,
everyone wants.
food aside, man, because you know what? Here's the truth. And to go back to your restaurant question, I'm glad you brought that. And look, I'll get to that. But the food, it's not about like the chains, although Porto's be dough, blah, blah, blah. But like, it is the mom and pop spot, like a light and healthy that make the community like a one-off spot. Or like what I didn't mention in LA, and this is funny, people are like, what's your favorite taco? And I'm like, kind of whichever one I'm eating at the time, like taco truck, backyard carne asada, something like that, because they're all so dope. But like, that's what I love to see is these little mom and pop spots. And that's what makes LA so dope. And I was driving around today, I didn't see a ton of that here, where it seems more like, and I guess people honestly used to say this about the Valley too, it seems more mini mall-ish, chain-ish. And even if it's not like a chain, it almost like looks like one, the way that like restaurants are like set up. So that was something that kind of like is missing a little bit, quote unquote. But here's the funny thing is it's really clean out here, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like everything's really clean. And kind of what adds to that flavor and the level of interest is like, and look, I'm not promoting tagging or any of that stuff, but when you see like the street art and things like that, like when you drive through a grittier neighborhood, like it kind of gives more flavor to
absolutely.
an area, in my
They're, like, paying more
opinion.
attention, like you're looking around, like it's
Yeah,
And here's the funny thing that I couldn't
MSG.
tell. I couldn't tell today. Like, am I still in Santa Clarita? Is this Valencia? Like, wait, now this is Saugus, and they kind of like look the same.
yeah, copy and paste. basically.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like to me, I want to see just a little bit more variety or character in each area. But that comes with age too. You know what I mean? Like you need more years under your belt to have
no, but
that.
you're right, dude. All the houses are this close to each other. You can hear your neighbor fart. Like, yeah. So
Yeah.
we're trying.
Santa Clarita is an interesting place for sure. Everyone leaves, and then for some reason, everybody
Come
comes
back.
back.
Full circle.
How's the diversity out here?
I mean, coming from New York, I would have to hang out with like my crew, like with the Filipinos and like very cliquey. Out here, I think it's more wide range.
Yeah,
but
like you're pretty.
it's a very Republican, I think, city for sure.
Yeah.
It's changing its ways.
But is it pretty white? Is it as white as it seems? I mean, this room obviously not, but
yeah.
I
You know,
think what
for the most-
60% maybe. There's a lot of Hispanics out here.
that's where they stay. Yeah, that's where they
Yeah.
stay in Newhall.
Yeah, that's the flavor of Santa Clarita right there, Newhall.
But this is the truth though, bro. Like
Right?
that's the thing is like you see that those communities are what have the variety. Like again, and this is my favorite thing about LA, like going back to it, and Santa Clarita included, is I don't think, and I've traveled and I've lived different places, but somehow Los Angeles, like, and yes, there's racism. I know somebody's gonna be like, they're racist, but like for some reason, LA feels like there's more exposure to all the races from a young age, no matter where you are, and people just aren't as outwardly conscious of it. And even though, yes, there are black areas, white areas, Jewish areas, Mexican areas, it feels like, and maybe because of the car, everybody needs to interact with everybody all the fucking time. So basically, you don't give a fuck that guy's Filipino or Chinese or Armenian or whatever, because you're in a rush to get somewhere. Like, you're both going to eat at the same taco place, or you're both rooting for the Dodgers anyway.